And now, from the Bell Lifestyle Studio, here's Mike.
It is 8:41, Newstalk Sauga 960, Raw, Mike Richards. We will take a short break from talking about all things concerning people this morning in the sports world, that, of course, being the PGA and Live Golf now being friends. As Bill Murray said in the movie, cats and dogs living together. It's a weird one out there. And, of course, now we have smoke everywhere. Yeah. Of course, we don't live in hell. You're right. It'd be very different. Then, of course, you're in Leafland. Everyone's panicking over the new general manager. What about Austin Matthews? And now, of course, as I said, it's just one of those things in this world where we don't seemingly have a place to escape. Well, like, there is a way. You know what? There's a very interesting way. It's called reading. I realize a lot of our audience goes, "What are you talking about, Richards? What about Manoa?" Okay, we're just going to take a break from that for a second, if that's okay. Wayne Ing, who came on our show, I want to say about a year ago, maybe. It was such a great talk, such a fascinating talk. Letters from Johnny was such an interesting take. And when you talk to someone who has, there's a lot of gravity that comes with the conversation that we had, because of his background, his ethnic background, where he grew up, what he did for a living. And so you wonder, at least as fans of literature, does that mean the books will have a similarity when they come out? Will the first book look like the second book? Does the second book have a similar feel to the third book? Wayne has none of that. Just so you know, Wayne's books come out and you're like, is this about vampire Martians or something? What the hell is this one? And yet, here we are. The book is called The Family Code. And those that are in the know, such great write-ups. I mean, he's won awards for his writing, and he should get one for being just a great dude. He joins us here this morning. Wayne, how are you doing, buddy? Good to see you.
I'm great. Thanks so much for having me. It's great to see you again, pal.
Yeah, great to see you too. Chris Houston, our all-time Hall of Fame legendary guest, and what would it be? I'm trying to think of the word as you bring us, the bringer of talent, like the bringer of rain. Is that fair?
I'll take it. Rain gets rid of smoke, so we'll go with it. Everyone, stay indoors this week and read Wayne's fantastic book, because it's smoky outside. You want to be somewhere comfy with a drink and a great book.
This is a great idea. And this book, The Family Code, again, isn't like the others, but I can't help but think that, as a social worker, you would have seen so much of kind of this gritty content that this book has. How much does that influence you when you're coming up with the genesis for a story or an idea for a novel?
Well, I think most stories begin with a combination of character, plot, setting, or theme. I start with a theme. I wanted to ask, what do I want to leave my readers with? What are the questions I want them to ponder? What do I want them to feel? So I wanted my readers to feel the journey that Hannah and Axel went. I wanted to feel the grit, sandpaper, the volatility, the prickliness of their life. And I really wanted them to just empathize with the kind of characters who, if you met them on the street, supermarket, in a school, wherever, you would think, oh my God, what a human dumpster fire. We would immediately judge them and said, like, these are the last people we want to sit on a bus ride, with to Winnipeg, because that would be horrible. But once you get to know them, you realize what they are hurt people hurting people. Because scared people can be scary, and all they are is just trying to survive. And as a clinician, very often we try and explain poor behavior, because a lot of the way they react and interact with the rest of the world it's just not on. I mean, they're rude, they're abusive, they're confrontational, they're prickly, they're volatile. But as much as you don't want to sit on that bus ride with them, by the end of the book, you're going to be rooting for them. And as a clinician, we can explain that as, they're trauma survivors, loss and abandonment issues, reactive attachment disorders, all these, gobbledygook kind of names and diagnoses I can throw at you, and everybody else does too. You go on Google and they're handing out clinical diagnoses like it's Halloween, right? But it's reductive. it's completely unfair, and it doesn't give any sort of human dimension to who people really are. And ultimately, we judge people really quickly. I do as well. I'm not trying to take the moral high ground here. I think we quickly assess situations and people, and we reduce it into sound bites, and we don't do people like Hannah and Axel justice. So I wanted to give a very human context to what looks like a human dumpster fire, but they're people just like you and I.
That's a very interesting perspective. I can tell you that in this household, and of course I'm from a family of teachers and coaches, and you see it all. You assume by someone walking through the door, in some cases it's a child, or if you're coaching high school football, you hear whispers and the guy walks in, and you make these assumptions about what you know about people. But
yeah,
the one of the shows that we watch in this household is a show by Cesar Millan, who they call the Dog Whisperer. You see the dogs at the beginning, and they're very nasty, and they're barking, and they're chewing stuff, and they're very aggressive. And most people are like, what an awful dog. The dog's terrible. Let's put the dog down. We would never want to be around a dog like that. Cesar Millan comes in there, and he really is a dog whisperer. He makes these little sounds. He does certain judgments. And he said, it's usually the same thing. There is some sort of trauma. There is something that has pushed that puppy or dog or to this being relatively scared. So the barking, the gnashing, the aggressive nature of the animal is all based on the fact that there was fear. And when you meet people, and in my lifetime anyway, it's very often that no one has bothered to take the time to help them alleviate themselves of that fear. And the only protection and defense they have is indeed doing what has been done unto them. Right. Thus the cycle of terribleness. And when we talk about people in downtown Toronto or one of these urban centers, and we see generations of quote unquote the bad family, it really doesn't take long. And I'm sure in your field, and you saw it all, you grew up in Toronto, even though going to Ottawa, that and I'll go a step further. It's why people sometimes, and very racist people, don't like other cultures, because they've never bothered to actually understand that culture and talk to them. So the initial feeling, and again, racism is nothing but fear. It is fear-based, because they need to protect themselves against this thing they don't understand and they don't know. You take that away, we resolve a lot of the problems, but at the old psychological, that's what you did for a living. But the depth of that, I would think, as you're writing these books, especially this one, in a sense, does it write itself?
This is my fifth novel that's either a work in progress or is coming out. And this is my only protagonist who's not a single, who isn't Asian. So Hannah is a white female mother. I clearly am not. This was probably the easiest one for me to write. Yeah, simply, because I've met thousands of Hannahs and Axels, and I've been moved so many times by their stories. I mean, anytime I sit down with a conversation and they share elements of their life it can be deeply moving and very personal, very revealing and intimate. They're handing me a gift. And I honor that, I cherish that, and it moves me. So I always knew I would write something to honor their lives, their resilience, their struggles, their humor, their hope. So when it turned out to be my pandemic novel, the world shut down in March, the NBA, NHL seasons collapsed, it was just like, what do we do next? It was awful. And then my mother died, and George Floyd happened, and it was just shit show all around.
Yep.
But I sunk into Hannah and Axel, and it wrote itself. I had a first draft in 9 months, which is really, really fast for this kind of a novel, because Hannah was already in my head. I didn't have the character fleshed out, but I had, as I say, the theme, the message. I wanted Hannah to be heard. I wanted, exactly as you say, the hate that's in her life. I wanted people to understand where it came from. I wanted people to understand how that hatred is generational, because it got passed on to her as well, and it wasn't challenged and wasn't interrupted. So she wasn't that difficult to write, really.
Do you find sometimes, depending on the subject matter, that there is a sense of Well, it could be a couple things. It could either be accomplishment when you're done with the book, but there also could be a sense of fatigue, perhaps, depending on subject matter.
Well, with Hannah, because her struggle is so personal, and it is a very intense story with a lot of humor, I should add. Um, I have to admit, there's times I cheered up as well. And Mike, if that doesn't happen to you, I'll give you your money back. All right. If you're not rooting for Hannah and tearing up along the way, send me an email and I'll send you your money back. It's a very emotional experience to write as well as to read, because I'm deeply invested in connecting with characters. So I think a really good therapist is very much like a really good writer, that we're not afraid to go into the deep, dark caverns of our own lives and use that to join with our characters and join with our clients. So yeah, it was an intense emotional experience, especially, as I say, during the pandemic when my mother died.
Yeah, well, you and I both. I mean,
Oh,
that's what
really?
happened. Yeah. I mean, I completely relate to what you're saying. You go into, and that's why I think people have gone through similar circumstances in the past 3 to 4 years. When you hear people talk, and I talk this way all the time about how oppressive this last 3 or 4 years has been. Sometimes maybe you're not doing what you thought you'd do, but that's everybody. That's everybody. The world didn't do what it wanted to do. Many people lost, parents and family members and uncles and aunts and during this whole time. And the one thing that I think comes from it that adversity, it pushes some of us. It certainly pushed me in some ways. And obviously, if you're writing a book or thinking of writing a book, how can that not have been of some influence in what went down pen to paper? It had to have been.
Yeah, I've heard some writers say, you know what, because of the pandemic, we should be writing light stuff, because the world needs light stories. No, we need good stories. We need to be emotionally engaged. We need to be emotionally invested in people, whether it's a rom-com, whether it's a family drama, however you write it. And I think the best writes link you in emotionally, and where you feel emotionally invested in the characters. And it doesn't matter what genre it is.
Well, such interesting stuff. Now, Chris, did you want to jump in here and add something?
I just wanted to say, as a spoiler alert for all of your listeners who are listening to this on radio, that Wayne is not a negligent single mother, but able to write in that mode. One of the great things about the family code is it alternates between Hannah's point of view and 7 or 8 year old Axel. And for the folks at home, Wayne is not a 7 or 8 year old. He's a full adult. So his ability to write from these two perspectives, this is what it might be a big lift to get all the way through Hannah's perspective, but suddenly every chapter alternates to Axel. How do you access, Wayne, as a writer, your inner 7 or 8 year old? Do you actually have Hulk socks? Or what are Burger King fries really the best fries? Like these are the questions today.
Well, I've probably had tens of thousands of sessions with kids, adolescents, and parents. I love them. I love talking to kids. I don't have kids of my own, but I feel like I have 100 every year. Unique kids, unique stories, unique challenges. A lot of the time it's playing. It's just like, tell me what your day looks like, what kind of websites you go on, who's your favorite superhero. It might not seem very clinical to the ordinary person. It's just a conversation. And I think that's how I'm able to teach kids, because we're just joining as human beings, not as a clinician and as a child. To me, I'm getting paid to do something I enjoy doing. It's almost like playing in the NHL. You're getting paid to do something you would do anyway because you enjoy it, you love it. So
well, hopefully when someone asks you, how do you write like a woman, you don't give the as good as it gets Jack Nicholson quote and say, I think of a man and I take away reason and accountability. Wayne, oh boy, so good to see you. You're welcome on the show anytime. As
Thanks,
you
man.
know,
Appreciate it.
it's wonderful. You do such a great job and a great person to reach people the way you do. And of course, Chris Houston from the Idea Shop Canada. Boy, it's great to see your face, my friend. Oh boy, it's been too long. And as I said, you guys are welcome anytime. And congratulations on yet another great book.
Thanks, Mike. Take care.
Wayne Ing and Chris Houston join us here this morning. The book, once again, The Family Code, certainly worth the pickup because it is worth the time. And the time he has put into it will be, actually, it's a gift is what it is.